in child protective services, and they won't give them back to their loving families because they're making money.
This is a legal system that you're going into. And if you don't know the rules, you will be chewed up and spit out.
If I could say anything to a mother who just got their children detained, you're in a crisis. Yeah. Life feels like it's over. The most important thing is regaining custody of your children.
The child welfare system at its core is designed to protect children who need protection, okay? And that's key, is who need protection.
So social workers, out of fear, will remove more children rather than only remove those children that truly need to be removed.
It's okay. It's okay.
This isn't someone stole your car. Someone broke into your house. This someone took your child, your flesh and blood.
It doesn't say on this order that it was not proven. It says untrue. I immediately knew that, okay, well, this ain't over.
Signs? Did I miss them? Did I catch them? At this point, I honestly don't know.
Families only get a finite amount of time to reunify.
I came into this field to help families, not destroy them.
The difference between the criminal system and the child welfare system is substantial. You have more rights as a criminal than you do as a parent.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Georgette Truan. I am the host for CPS Real Talk with Miss G, and I have attorney Vincent Davis with me today. Hi, Mr. Davis.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great, and you, sir?
Doing fine on this Saturday afternoon, 4th of July weekend.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for joining me today. I know you have a busy schedule, and I should know because I do work for you after all. So I do want to start with this. In a relative placement, with this new law, it's called the Nancy Skinner law, which is the SB 354, which was in full effect January 1st, 2022. It removes obstacles in the foster care system that have prevented children from being placed with a relative caregiver who may have a past conviction. Current law can prevent someone, or the past law can prevent someone from caring for a child, even when their past conviction is decades old and they pose no safety risk to the child. Now, this is very important to me because I'm getting a lot of grandparents who had a felony when they were 16. Now they're in their 60s and 65. Mid-60s, and the social worker told them because of their felony when they were so young of stealing pen or something like that, that they can't have placement of their children. Also, I get a lot of grandparents who say that because they live in a different state and the case is in California, they can't have placement of the children. And I'm getting this, and I know you said before, sir, that anywhere in the world. Am I right? Or
you are correct.
Okay, so if it's anywhere in the world, how can they object? Is it because of funding? Is it because the incentive, the county would lose that money? Is that why they refuse, or they reluctant to transfer the case into another state or county or country?
You know, it's America. And generally they say follow the money.
Yeah, I know.
So there's a million reasons why CPS workers don't want to place children with relatives.
Mm-hmm.
It's been my experience over the past, 30 plus years as a lawyer doing these CPS cases that it's my opinion that a lot of kids don't get placed with relatives because of money, especially when kids are going to be placed outside the state. So I'll give you an example.
Mhm.
Case in Los Angeles, grandmother lives in Florida,
Mhm.
wants child placed with them. Um, Magically, it seems almost in every case, the kid doesn't get to be sent to Florida with grandma. And if you're following the money, most of that federal money follows the kid. So that means Florida is going to get money, California isn't. Florida is going to be providing some type of supervision, California isn't. Will California still get money? Yes, because the case is still in California, but not as much as if the kid were placed in a foster home here in California or in this county. So what's true for state to state is also true, in my opinion, from county to county. Now, that law that you mentioned, it's going to be interesting to see how that is implemented and how liberal an application that's going to be. Remember, the law, in my opinion, is just guidance for the court. It's up to the judge, and the judge makes decisions based upon what social workers say or do.
Right.
So despite that law, I mean, I could see, some judge not placing a child in Florida because of other reasons. Child has a bond with the foster parent. Child has a bond with the foster parent or foster siblings. Child won't be able. Here's a good one. This one is used all the time. Child won't be able to visit parents if placed in Florida, right? Sometimes they, ask the parent, hey, do you want your child to go be placed in Florida with the grandmother? By the way, if you say yes, you won't be able to visit, which, by the way, isn't true, um, because the social worker still has to set up visitation for the child with the parent in Florida. What if that meant the social worker had to pay airfare for the mother to go back once a month, twice a month? Oh, we wouldn't do that, would we? That'd be too expensive. Follow the money, G. Follow the money. It's America.
I know. Unfortunately, it is.
And by the way, that law that you mentioned, I believe that law is only applicable in the state of California.
That is correct.
Whether other states pass a similar law, that's going to be up to each state. Now, here's something that could happen.
Mhm.
The Department of Health and Human Services, who runs and makes all the rules for all of these cases nationwide and
Mhm.
controls all the federal money, about $70 billion federal nationally, they could make a rule and they could say, you know what, every state who wants federal money has to adopt this law or a law similar to it. And then they could change the law, and that would be the law of the land, because no state's going to turn down their billions of dollars because, some grandma had, a drunk driving conviction 60 years ago, right? Doesn't
Right.
make sense.
Yeah, but the reason I brought this up also is because they're telling grandparents there is no such law. If there is such law, and I literally am looking at it, and it passed. It was signed by Governor Newsom. So how can they say to people or grandparents there is no such law when there is such law?
Well,
So that kind of confuses me a bit. Are they delusional, or I I don't understand that.
well, um, I'm kind of confused by that question, because how can they say it? They say, shit all the time.
I know they do.
Okay. Now, what I would do is I would verify that that law went into effect. Just because it was signed January of 2022 doesn't mean it went into effect that
Yes,
day.
it is. It went into full effect.
Okay.
It was it went into full effect January 1st,
Okay.
2022. I'm
And,
actually reading that right now.
and some of the people, depending on the county the social worker resides in and is trained in and works in, they may not know. They may legitimately not know. I would
So,
not be surprised.
so they're trained once a month to steal children and to manipulate and deceive parents, but yet they're not trained on the new laws. I mean,
You're
so
looking,
their training is very, very weird training, in my
well,
opinion.
you're expecting too much. You're looking at it from your perspective. You know, Social workers are generally overworked, underpaid, and they don't have the training that you think they have.
Did you just say underpaid? They're not underpaid. We're going to discuss this after the show. I actually have a lot of stuff to show you. They're not underpaid and they're not overworked. They're not. They're really not, because they don't do their job. They actually deceive people, lie to parents. In fact, there was a parent that showed me a video of her Ring camera when the social worker told her, if you don't sign the safety plan, you will never see your children again. I will make sure your kids are adopted. Now, that's
That
threatening
wait,
me,
wait,
isn't it?
hold
I
on,
mean,
hold on. You know someone that has that video?
yes, in
I,
Lancaster.
I would like to see it.
Yes, I will send it to you. It
Try to
was
send it to
actually
me.
emailed.
Try to send it to me today.
I will. So
Okay.
that can't happen. This crap does happen, but it shouldn't happen. Am I right?
I think you're 100% right.
Okay.
Summer Rain just posted, she said, my opinion, it's not right. I think people get broken in the system. It affects the whole family. Summer is absolutely correct.
Mhm.
I was talking to someone today about the children being placed in a foster home. Actually, it wasn't a foster home, it was a relative foster home. And the social worker is basically turning brother against brother.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure if the social worker is doing that because she thinks that's going to protect the children. But I asked this father, I said, hey, how do you get along with your brother who has the kids now? He said, we used to get along great. I said, well, why aren't you getting along now? And he said, well, the social worker is subtly and slowly planting things in his mind that aren't true and turning him against me.
This is all the time, by the way, Mr. Davis. This is what I tell people on my show. Okay. See, social workers turn families against each other. They're like demons. They're demonic. They turn families against each other because when you don't have support of family, you're broken. Because when you're united together, you're stronger. And when you're divided, you're weaker. So they have to divide them apart from their family. And this happens all the time, every day. And I tell people this all the time. In order for you to conquer someone, you have to divide them. And that's the God honest truth.
Yeah, the divide and conquer. That's,
Divide and conquer.
an old strategy from the beginning of time.
Correct. Correct. And that goes with, I mean, every county, every social worker, it's like they have the same training. And in fact, I spoke to a previous she used to be a social worker. She was a social worker for 4 months or 5 months. She said she didn't even complete the 6 months and she quit. She quit 3 years ago. And she was watching one of my shows a couple of weeks ago. And she contacted me through one of my co hosts on my show. And she said, Georgette, I just want you to know that the reason I left, that everything basically I was saying was accurate. The reason she left being a social worker is because she was trained to divide the family apart. She was trained to lie to the parents. She was trained to lie about what the children said about the parent. That's why oftentimes kids say, I didn't say that. Teenagers or 10-year-old or preteens, I didn't say that. Even 7-year-old. I didn't say my mom hit me. I didn't say my mom beat me. I never said that. But it's their word, the child's word against the social worker's word. And 99.9% of the time, the judges listen to what the social worker writes down. So there is no checks and balances in the court, juvenile dependency whatsoever. It's like, I feel like the judges have a minor brain fart and they just like, you know what? I ate too much lunch today, or I ate too much today. I don't want to work. I don't feel like working. And then they just take a word of someone who lied against the parent just to get that child away from the parent. Why? Because they get their funding when the child is placed in a foster home. And they get more funding when the child is adopted.
Well, let me tell you this. I don't necessarily agree with you, what you just said, everything. Some I do, some I don't. But here's the thing, and this is important. And I think everyone watching this or who watches this in the future should realize something. And I told this to someone today. I said, you're hoping and believing that the social worker will always act fair, always tell the truth. And that's not necessarily the case. I mean, I took the deposition, and remind me, I'm going to find that videotape deposition and we're going to post it on social media. But I took the deposition in a civil rights lawsuit against the county social worker, and she admitted she lied to the judge. Admitted. And admitted that she signed a declaration under penalty of perjury that was false, and she knew it was false.
Right.
What I think is, I think a lot of judges or hearing officers believe social workers wouldn't lie.
Right.
And that's not the case. That worker that I told you admitted that she lied under oath is currently, I believe, a supervisor in a CPS office. Supervisor. After the lawsuit and after she testified, after she got promoted. She didn't get promoted before, she got promoted after. And I think she got promoted because she was, in my opinion, protecting those above her. Okay? In what happened in this particular case. But, people are people, right? There's good and there's bad. And I think that, a lot of times social workers, in a rush to judgment, in a rush to quote unquote protect children, in a rush, I don't know, to get federal funds, sometimes say things or do things that are not quite accurate. And, when I used to be an accountant, there was something called pencil whipping somebody. That meant, changing the numbers basically with your pencil. And I feel that the same thing happens a lot with social workers. I talked to a kid who's now a teenager up in Northern California not too long ago. And he confessed to me that the statements made in the original detention report by the social worker were not true, in that, he did say them, but he said them because the social worker allegedly coerced him to say ABC, with them both knowing ABC was not true.
Right.
But he said, I did say it, but the social worker promised me things, to get me to agree to say ABC.
Right.
If you just mentioned something that you have a videotape that you're going to send me, but there was something else. You said you had some other proof that somebody had lied about something.
There was a 15-year-old, but the thing about it is she's going to speak to you about that because her 15-year-old went to a group home. There was nothing wrong. They were going through a bad divorce, family law. And then the father, who's rich, has a lot of money, and the mother is, barely can make it. And the child didn't want to live with the father. So they accused the mother of coaching her 15-year-old not to love his dad, which is not true. It's just the dad abuses him. So he started recording the abuse in the group home. So one of the coordinator was beating on another kid. And then they were beating on him. And then one of the social workers told him that if he doesn't go live with his dad, that he will never see his mother again. That he will always be in the group home unless he chooses to go see his father. And the kid was very smart. He's a very smart, intelligent teenager. And he recorded them without them knowing.
Well, let me ask you something. Is the case still open? Is the kid still in CPS custody?
The kid is with the mother now, but she's under observation for like 6 months. But the judge is telling him, the court is telling him that he's not going to the case is not going to close unless he agrees to have time with his father.
Okay.
And he
Well,
doesn't want to.
I can't unfortunately, talk to the child while the kid still has an attorney and under juvenile court supervision.
Well, but you can talk to the mother.
I can talk to the mother
Yeah.
and would be happy to do so.
Yeah. And also, I want to ask you another question. There was a case that I was talking with today. CPS removed a baby yesterday. Baby had medical problems from birth, and they told the mother it is because she had 6 missed doctor appointments. Now, there's no drugs, no criminal history, but she had 6. That's what the social worker is telling her. But the mom said, no, I have proof that I went to every appointment, literally every appointment. And the social worker said, well, you can't show your evidence into court because I don't believe you. And then they took the baby without any reason other than the baby was born with the medical conditions he's in, the NICU, the NICU, I mean, and so she doesn't understand how they can just remove the baby. Then she gets a report saying that the child is in danger. Mind you, not the baby is only a week old. The child is in danger of physical and sexual abuse. The child is physically abused, and the environment of the child health and safety is at risk. The mother has a home. She has a house. She owns her own property. So she doesn't understand how a baby that was just born a week ago can be sexually abused.
I can't answer that. I'd have to see the report. I'd have to talk to the mother. But here's the important question that came to my mind. Did they have a warrant to take the child away?
No, DHS called CPS. DHS from the hospital contacted CPS, and then they got involved, and then they removed the baby from. I mean, they told her to leave. Like, she can't be around the baby.
What state did this happen in?
Riverside,
Okay.
California.
So, I mean, if you have that person's number, I definitely like to talk to her.
Yeah, I have her information right here. Yeah, she's gonna talk to you, but it's sad. So stuff like this, basically, I mean, there's more, Mr. Davis. There's so many stories. There's another one. A social worker in Riverside went, San Bernardino. She wrote on her card that she's a practitioner, and she told the parent that she's a practitioner and she's qualified to remove the children from the home. There was nothing wrong with the children. There was no court order, but because she, in her card, she put practitioner. And I don't know if that's a new thing, or I don't know if you heard about this.
No, not at all.
Now, in San Bernardino, social workers, on their business cards, they put their practitioners.
I have no idea what that means.
Me neither. But they're telling the people, the parents, that they are qualified to see when there's something wrong with the children, and they can remove them without a court order in San Bernardino.
They can remove them without a court order if there's an exigent/emergency circumstance. They need to have that to try to remove a child without a court order.
Okay.
But generally, you need a court order, or you have a lawsuit against the social worker and against the county for violation of your Fourth Amendment constitutional rights.
Right. And I would also like you to explain to the people about a civil lawsuit against the Department of Children and Family Services. Now, I know not every lawsuit is a winning lawsuit, obviously. And not every I mean, you can't just take any lawsuit, right? You have to review the case. You have to kind of see what is going on first. You can't just give somebody, yes, I will take your lawsuit, right? Because there's guidelines you have to follow, right? You can't just take anybody on a civil suit.
Well, that's correct. Generally, civil rights lawsuits in this realm happen, number one, when the social worker has lied on the stand or in a report to the court.
Right.
Number two, where the child has been abused physically, emotionally, sexually
Right.
in a foster home. Okay.
Right.
And number three, when the social worker takes your child or detains your child without a warrant or court order. Those are the big three areas, where they have lawsuits. There are, different types of things that happen in every case, but generally they can be, boiled down to one of those three things. And it's generally, social worker lied in lawsuit or on the stand under, under penalty of perjury. I see that one as the most prominent one. And I see that it happens, so many times. And I don't know why a social worker would do that unless there's some type of incentive for them or their boss or someone to do something like that. I mean, to take somebody's child, I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, you might as well burn down their house.
Yep.
You might as well throw them in jail.
Yep.
And, I think a lot of times what happens is parents get on the wrong side of the social worker. Social worker has a dislike for them and then starts saying all kind of crap. Now, I'm not saying that they should do this, but I'm just saying what I see happens. I remember this guy has been a client. He's had maybe 2 or 3 different CPS cases with me, and I've represented him every time. The first time I met him, they came out to his home to take his child, and he was video recording everything, and they knew he was video recording, and he was, being really tough on the social workers, talking shit and, calling them names and everything. And, the social workers made up some crap on him and took the kid. He called me. We went to court like a couple days later, and in front of a judge who is still, I think, in Monterey Park, I argued the case, and the judge ruled that the social worker basically didn't have any evidence to take the kid from him other than my client's big mouth, and my client's big mouth was not a reason to take the kid away from him, right? But, social workers, and I know you're going to get upset with this, are human beings, and if you piss them off, they're going to bend over backwards to try to, do something to you.
I don't agree with you on that, because social workers are pissed off regardless what you do. There's mothers that cry. They call them weakness. They call them they're weak. They're mentally unstable because they're crying for their children.
Oh yeah,
And
they'll use
right. That's
right.
not.
If you cry,
that's not being human, Mr. Davis. Okay.
If they cry, they'll use that against them. If they don't cry, they'll use that against them.
Yeah.
So it's I've seen.
If they don't cry, then they say you don't love your child enough, and then when they do cry, they say that you're unstable, that you're hysterical, you need mental help. No, that's not. You're telling me, or you're telling us, that social workers are human. They're not human. You can't be human and do that type of work. That's why oftentimes social workers who are or were in that field, they leave. Why? Because they have they can't go with that. They can't do what they're doing. The ones that do choose to stay, that means their heart is dark inside. They're not normal. They're not normal people.
Well, here's what I'm trying to say. Human beings do very cruel things. We see that throughout history. The first thing that comes to mind is, the Holocaust. Adolf Hitler. But in recorded history, throughout most civilizations, there are atrocities, right? I think you will agree with me. Human beings do some awful stuff. They're still human beings. That doesn't mean that what they're doing is right. And I think that in these types of cases, twisting a word here or there, lying, that's easy. That's easy for someone to do. It's not like they're shooting the parent in the head. I mean, they might as well. That doesn't make it right. But they're human beings. But human beings are, capable of doing some very awful things to each other. So I disagree with you. They are human, but that doesn't mean what they're doing is right. And we have to be able to learn how to use that for our advantage. to try to keep these people together with their families and their children.
How come there's no checks and balances in court with the judges? How come the judges believes whatever the social worker corruptly put down on documents against the parent? How come when there is
If you
evidence?
ask one question at a time, I'll answer it.
Okay, one question at a time. Why isn't there checks and balances in court?
Okay. First of all, there are checks and balances. They might not be checks and balances that you like or that you think are sufficient, but there are, because you can appeal any decision that a judge makes. You can appeal it or you take a writ on it. Now, that doesn't mean that you like it or you believe there should be stronger checks and balances, but there are. There are checks and balances. Should there be better checks and balances? Well, the system should be overhauled, first of all. All right. People should be given the right to have a jury trial.
Right.
Right. People should be able to record social workers without their knowledge. There was a law pending in California a couple of years ago where they were going to make it legal for you to tape record or video record your social worker, talking and saying crazy stuff. It didn't pass.
I wonder why, Mr. Davis.
Because not enough of us go out and vote. That's why.
Vote for who?
Legislators that will pass laws like that will give families 110% protection in their rights as, parents. At the beginning of the show, Grace, the producer, played a trailer from that CPS movie. And in that movie, I was interviewed, and I say something, and I'm not sure. I think the director and the producer of the movie understood this, but I don't think people really understand this. And I say something like, you have more rights as a criminal than you do as a parent. All right. Now, if you stop and think about that, shouldn't it be the other way around? Mm-hmm. Do people care more about going to jail, or do they care more about their children? There is nothing in this world that people find more important than their children.
Exactly.
Okay. Look, going to jail, yeah, that's important. It's important, but your children are more important. Yep. Why are we given less rights?
Right? Because there's money involved. The state and the local community, which is CPS, are accustomed to having these taxpayers' dollars, or balancing this growing budget.
I went to a seminar a few weeks ago, and the speaker, a pretty dynamic guy, did this. He goes, "Do you know what that is? That's me at the club having a really good time." And he was talking about it in terms of people using the system to make money.
Yep.
When people talk about CPS,
mm-hmm. Yep.
It's legalized what they do. They have immunity, qualified immunity in a lot of cases. Can't even sue them, for doing negligent things. You got to prove that it was intentional, which is, right. Very difficult to do. A lot of people think, if the social worker did me wrong, I can sue and win. That's not true. There's so many hurdles for you to jump over. Just before we started the show, I was talking to a guy on the phone, and I said, the most important thing I can tell you is your sense of fairness and justice is not reality in the CPS system.
Right.
And he was like, well, why not? I said, because you didn't have any input on making the laws, and you don't have any input on voting for legislators and state senators who can change the law. He said, honestly, Mr. Davis, I never knew CPS even existed mm-hmm. before I got involved in it. I believe that.
Yep, I believe that too.
But what are you going to do? Well, the only thing that you can do is change the laws through voting, through propositions here in California, through changing of statutes. It's easy to do. They pass laws all the time.
Social workers have too much immunity, too much funding for them, and they're not.
They could change that. They could change that,
Mr. David.
They could change the law on Tuesday and say social workers no longer have qualified immunity. If they just did that one thing, a lot of things would change. You remember when that guy was killed by the police officer, the chokehold on TV that everybody saw over there in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Do you know that one of the things that they tried to do was to take away immunity, qualified immunity from police officers? It's just a matter of changing the law. Guess what? That law didn't change. They still have qualified immunity. Now, it didn't matter in that particular case. The guy was convicted of the police officers were convicted of a crime. The family won, millions and millions of dollars because we all saw it. I mean, what if there was no smartphone that had video on it? As I recall, some, young woman was there videotaping the whole thing. That's why we saw it. And then it went out to every news channel there is in the world. We all saw Mr. Floyd get killed. Guess what? Police officers have qualified immunity too. If you take away qualified immunity from social workers, a lot of things would change. Believe me, a lot.
A lot. And the thing about it is when they go to police stations, for example, they go to somebody's home, they say, oh yeah, you have food in the refrigerator, your house is clean, great, everything is great, we're just going to leave now, we're going to close it unfound. Then they come back the following day at midnight with a police officer or two and bully the parents to give them the baby. Like literally bully the parent to give them the baby. And all the allegations is coming from an ex-girlfriend who is angry, or a mother-in-law who doesn't like her daughter-in-law, or an ex-angry boyfriend. And they take the allegations and add more false allegations on top of that, and add more and add more. And then the parent is kind of like, what the F? There is no record on them. There is nothing is wrong with them, but yet they want them to do drug testing, they want them to do this, they want them to do that. Why is that? If there is no drugs, why do they make them do drug testing and drug classes?
Which question do you want me to answer?
I'm sorry, going into a rant, but
hold on, there's something that I want to change the subject. There's something I got to tell you. Okay.
What?
Many years ago, my law office was involved in consumer law. Okay. They would, we belong to a group of attorneys that statewide worked together, shared information in suing car manufacturers under the California lemon law.
Okay.
There was such cooperation between the attorneys that it became almost impossible for the auto manufacturers to win. And it taught me something. It taught me that when lawyers and advocates band together statewide, you can conquer this beast.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I see and hear a lot about, and I don't see, is that we as CPS fighters don't work together. I get, comments all the time from non-attorneys who are advocates, who say, I don't know what I'm talking about. These are non-lawyers. Or that attorney so-and-so is not any good. Or attorney so-and-so doesn't know what he's doing or what she's doing. And what I hope for in the future is that we as attorneys and advocates work together to help one another, help these parents.
Right.
Because as long as we are fighting amongst ourselves and criticizing ourselves, it's the old divide and conquer.
Right.
We're doing it to ourselves.
That is true. I agree with you on that.
That's
the first thing I agree with you on. That's great.
I'm going to tell you a funny story. Not funny. It's actually kind of sad. A guy called me, this was a few years ago, and he says, I've been listening to you on your shows and in your radio show and your YouTube channel, And he says, I lost my kids. My rights were terminated, and um, I should have hired you. I said, oh, why didn't you hire me? You know what he told me? He said, well, there's this advocate online who told me you were a terrible attorney.
Mm,
And
I
I said,
know.
I said, oh, I said, he told me the person's name, who I was familiar with. And
Mm-hmm.
this is how I was familiar with this particular advocate. The advocate years before called me and wanted me to do a lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I told her on a couple of occasions after hearing her out that I wouldn't do the lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of pissed her off. She kept in contact with me, and I was happy to chat with her once in a while. And one day she called me on my mobile phone, my personal mobile phone, which she had, and I didn't mind. She called me, and I was in the middle of is either Target or Walmart, right? Not in the office, don't have anything in front of me. And she got upset because I didn't remember her. Just, I'm in the middle of Walmart or Target shopping. I was thinking about cases and surely not thinking about her case. She wasn't even a client.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, because somebody mentioned this to me in a comment on social media a couple weeks ago. This happened years ago. To this day, allegedly, she tells people that Davis is senile, doesn't know what he's doing. He won't even remember your case.
Mm-hmm.
And the gentleman who lost his rights was told by this person not to hire me
Right.
because I was old, senile, and didn't know what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I am old, I'll be 64 in less than a week. But
You're not.
know what I'm doing? I pretty much, know what I'm doing in this area of law. But
Actually,
that's an example of what I'm talking about. We're fighting each other. We all want the same thing, to help people in CPS cases,
right.
but we want to help people the way we want to help them, and not supporting the other people who are trying to help. And what I told you about these consumer law attorneys way back when I was involved with them, they always supported each other.
Yep.
Always.
And that's how it should be.
Right.
This is how it should be. And it's very sad. I actually did a special show, Mr. Davis, this year, in fact, that I received a call from a lady that wanted to hire you. And only you, not an associate, but only you. So I told her how much the retainer is going to be. And she said, I want him to do it pro bono. I said, I'm sorry, we're not doing pro bono cases at the moment. And she said, well, if he cares about the children, he should do pro bono. If you don't take my case pro bono, I'm going to go all over social media, all over Yelp. I'm going to write bad reviews. I'm going to get all my friends to write bad reviews about Attorney Davis. So I suggest you take my case, or else I'm going to keep writing bad reviews about you guys. So you know me, I have, I don't take threats very easy. So I told her, I said, bring it on, bitch. And that was that. I said, you go ahead and do that. I said, that speaks volume about who you are as a woman, as a mother, as a human being, that you're very bitter and you would hurt anyone just to get your way. And she said, you don't think I'm serious? I said, no, I don't care if you're serious or not. I said, you go ahead and do that. And then all of a sudden she calls me back 2 or 3 hours later and she said, I'm the best mom. I'm better mom than all the other hoes that watch your shows. And she just kept going on and on. And of course I defended my peoples because I know all of them. Literally, we all talk. And I told her, I said, you're not a better mom than them. I said, in fact, I said, you're proving to me that you're the worst human being on the face of the earth. I said, you're worse than a social worker. And when I told her that, that hit the spot. And this woman got so many people coming around writing bad reviews, pretending they're clients or whatever. And it's really sad that people have to go that route just because no pro bono cases. And I told her, I said, those pro bono attorneys to you, they actually get paid. They're not free. Otherwise, they can't have homes. They can't pay their bills. They can't put gas in their car. They can't have a vehicle. And so, how is that they're free? They're not free. But the word free to them, automatically they think, oh, I don't have to pay a dime. But look, you get what you pay for. They get so many cases. It's free. They're not devoted to your case. They're not paying attention to your case because they have other 300 cases they have to work on. So basically, it's like I tell them this: you're going to a Nissan, a Rolls Royce dealership, and expecting Nissan prices, right? It's not going to work that way. And I try to educate them. It's very important to hire an attorney in the beginning of the case before you open your mouth to the social workers. That's when you need an attorney. But oftentimes the parents or friends or family, they tell them, or co-workers, oh, don't. Just do whatever the social worker wants to do. You're going to be fine. You're going to be okay. And that's not even close to a truth.
You know,
and I'm really sad about this because your name is being smeared, and it's sad because I work for you and you remember things from 2 years ago.
you know, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. If people want to help and want to get their child back, they can just at least listening to my free consultation or what I have to say. I think I'm an expert in the area. I'm always learning every day, but we try to help people that we can help. We can only help those that want help. If they don't want our help, that's fine. But more power to them. I hope they do find the help and find the right attorney that's going to help them.
Yeah, but not every attorney can help them, Mr. Davis. There's a lot of people hire family law attorneys that never taken on a CPS case before. And I keep telling them you need a juvenile dependency attorney, which really blows my mind is that some courts allow them to go in and some courts would say, no, you're not qualified. And they actually kick the attorney out. I'm not kind of sure why in some courts they allow it and some courts don't allow it.
It's just up to the judge's discretion. There's a rule in California that you have to have a certain amount of experience and knowledge and training to do a juvenile dependency case, which I don't think is true for any other area of law. I just took over a case for a father who was being represented by the same private family law attorney that the mother was being represented by, which is, a no-no, a big no-no. And then I realized that this attorney had little to no juvenile dependency or CPS experience. So people have to be really careful about, who they hire if they're going to hire a lawyer, because not every lawyer is an expert in CPS, law. Like, if somebody wanted to hire a patent attorney and came to me, I couldn't do it. I would tell them I'm not a patent attorney. It's like going to, a heart doctor and saying, hey, I need brain surgery. Well, generally speaking, heart doctors don't do brain surgery, right?
Right.
Podiatrists, foot doctors don't do heart.
Right. You actually told me one time, would you go to a heart doctor for your foot condition? And I said, no, absolutely not. Then you said, oh, the same thing goes with attorneys. You can't just hire any attorney to handle a state case like this. It has to be someone that really understands state law, state jurisdiction, and know their way around the courts and know their way around cases. And people that I speak with, they usually say to me, well, Georgette or Ms. G, he wanted 2,500. I said, 2,500 for a TPR case? And she said, yes, 2,500. I said, what type of attorney is he? She said, a family law attorney. I said, has he ever done any CPS cases before? She said, no. I said, then how is he going to handle your case? I said, do you understand that you're towards the end of your case? And she said, well, he told me he can do it. He can help me. And then all of a sudden, 4 days later, he told her, oh, I need 16,000 to continue. So he only showed up in court one time. And then a few days later, I said, if you want me to continue, I need $16,000 to continue on your case. She called me. She said, I am so mad. I'm going to report him. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I said, well, actually, I told you what's up, but you want to hire him anyway. So you already knew not to hire somebody who's not qualified to handle your case. I said, it's not about the cheaper you get. I mean, the cheaper it is that you're going to have an attorney. What's the point? Am I right? Or do you have a better way of explaining it to the
No,
people?
no. I mean, but I will say this. If you ask yourself, what is the number one reason people don't get the right attorney in the CPS realm, what do you think that reason is?
Money, retainers.
You know what? I want to help some people.
Right.
Today is July 2nd. My birthday is in a few days. Let's do this. For everybody that gives us a call today, all right, 888-888-6582, I want you to ask to speak to Georgette, and they'll either take a message for Georgette or they'll connect you to Georgette. But everybody that calls us today, Georgette, we're going to give them a 50% discount off of our normal prices. And those are for cases. That's for cases here in Southern California. That would be LA, Riverside, San Bernardino, Orange County. Okay.
Did you say 50 or did I 15% or 50%?
50.
50? 50%.
50%.
Wow. Thank you.
Okay. So let's try to help a handful of people celebrate this 4th of July weekend, knowing that they can get some help and a reprieve and, trying to get their children back.
Amen to that.
Today, I met with a family and, it's really a sad situation. They drove from they drove from another county east of here 2 hours to meet with me this morning. And it was just, a really sad situation, what they've gone through with the social worker, what they've experienced. And I just feel compelled that somebody's got to do something. If I don't do anything, they're going to lose these children. So I met with them, and we're going to represent them. So in that spirit, let's carry that on for today. Now, here's Queen Maxine. What is Queen Maxine is saying? She said, I could not afford an attorney, so I had a public defender who I since fired because she was misrepresenting me and going back telling the other attorneys what we were talking about.
Okay.
That happens. I'm not saying that it's right. But Queen, call us. If you're in the area, you might qualify for that 50% discount. 888-888-6582. See it under my mouth, the telephone number. Hey, Georgette, it's getting close to the end of the hour. Because I have to sign off, ask me a question that you get all the time, and let me see if I can answer it.
For out-of-state people that call me, I explain to them the ProHawk, process. And they want you to kind of elaborate on that, kind of like how long the process is going to take. Usually, depending on the state, I tell them all you need is an attorney from that state to swear you in that court, correct?
No, to basically support you. Now, that's an interesting question because you know where I was yesterday, right?
Yes, in North Carolina.
I was in North Carolina in a CPS courtroom. And it was very interesting, I'd never been in a courtroom in North Carolina, but it's all the same, right? But if you want me to come to your state to represent you, I can. It's just a matter of expense, And by the way, I went to the court appearance yesterday in Greensboro, North Carolina, and case was continued. So I flew there, do the case. Case is continued. I flew back, and I have to go back. I think it's back in August. I have to go back to finish the case. But it's quite expensive. It's quite, there's hurdles because I'm only licensed in California, but I can get something called pro hac vice approval, where the state bar and the court in that particular state can approve me to represent you. The only thing is, I have to have what they call a local attorney. And I've done this in many states, so I'm kind of, an expert at it. We find a local attorney who appears in court with me and sponsors me and says, yeah, Davis is a good guy. You should let him practice in this state. And I'm here, judge, to, watch over him just in case there's anything wrong. So I see Queen says she has a case in Cincinnati, Ohio. And then Jenna says she has a case in Cincinnati, in Ohio as well. I don't know if it's Cincinnati. But give us a call. Talk to Georgette, 888-888-6582, and see if we can help you. Sometimes people have cases in other states, and I don't necessarily go back there because sometimes the cost is prohibitive. I mean, it's, the traveling, the hotel, the Ubers, the meals, all that kind of stuff. But sometimes people hire me as a consultant, to consult on their case and come up with a strategy that they and their local attorney can implement. So if you want me to review your case and just be a consultant on that, I'm able to do that as well.
Perfect. And then I have also another question. When one parent loses their parental rights, is it true that the grandparents lose their rights to that child?
In California, it is true. Now, I think it is true in all states, but there was one state, and I don't think they ever passed the law, and I think it was Minnesota, that tried to pass a law like if you lost your parental rights, that doesn't mean that grandma and grandpa lose their rights, right? Which I think is only fair, right? But that's not the law in California. And I don't think it's the law in any other state as well.
Okay, in California, can one parent when one parent loses their parental rights, does the other parent lose their rights as well?
Not automatically. They still have to bring a case, and they usually bring a case at the same time to terminate the rights of all the parents.
Right, but sometimes the parent is in jail. Like the father is in jail and the mother lost her parental rights, then the father has another hearing, et cetera, et cetera. But usually that's what they aim for. If one parent loses her rights, then the other parent loses their rights as well, correct?
Not correct. I just told you that's not correct.
It's not correct.
Right.
Wow.
But let me say this, because it brings up a situation that comes up a lot and people don't know about it in California. Let's say you have a kid and you're in jail, right? Mom has the kid or dad has the kid, and they get caught up in something like drugs or domestic violence with someone, and they take the kid away. What generally happens is they take jurisdiction over the kid because, mom's using drugs and dad is in jail. However, the case law in California actually says that you can't take jurisdiction over the child away from the father, even though he's in jail, if the father can make arrangements to have someone of his choice, friend or family member, distant family member, take care of the child. Okay? But a lot of people don't assert that defense, don't think about asserting that defense. They end up losing their kid, and then mom never gets her act together, and then they take away the children, the parental rights of both parents. And it's quite unfair for the father, who had nothing to do with this. He's in jail, on a robbery charge or something. So it's not like go to jail, lose your kid. That's not the law.
Yeah, but also 80% of the time, Mr. Davis, there's innocent people in jail as well.
Right.
So,
But I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about, if you're in jail or you know somebody in jail, and there's a CPS case regarding their kid, they should give you a call and ask to speak to me, because I might be able to give them information that will prevent the social worker from taking care or taking their child away from them.
right.
All
The
right.
most important thing is to make sure that your child is not removed from you forever. And
Right.
that is the most important thing. Do not wait until the end of your case, thinking that everything is going to change overnight. It doesn't change overnight. Things don't happen overnight. And a lot of people want instant result. There is no instant result when you come to an attorney after the fact you're losing your parental rights. You
Right.
have a week to lose your parental rights. You want the children now. You want to hire an attorney 3 days before you lose your parental rights? It doesn't make sense. So you need
Right.
to act on it immediately. This is not a thinking time. How can I say it? People think they have time. CPS is 10 steps ahead of you. That's what people don't understand. That before they go to your house, before they speak with you, they're already 10 steps ahead of you. If I'm wrong, Mr. Davis will correct me.
No, I agree with you on that one. Hey, Georgette, I do have to go.
Okay.
It's been great. You know what? I'm going to talk to the producer, Grace, and ask her. I might be available tomorrow. And if there is someone out there in the audience that wants to come on and appear with me and Georgette, if you're available, I know it's Sunday.
I'm fine. I'm available.
We can have a show tomorrow where we have a special guest, one of you out there, a parent who has questions, and we'll just talk about your case, for
Also,
half hour or so. It'd be like a free half hour or hour, consult, with me. And maybe people will see it and they will have the same questions and they'll benefit from it too, somewhere on Facebook or YouTube. Okay, Georgette?
okay.
Grace,
But
I know that you're there, so find out if anybody wants to be a guest. And if they want to be a guest, they can email Grace at Grace, GRACE, at VincentWDavis.com. Grace at VincentWDavis.com. Georgette, you're chomping at the bit. I have to go. One last thing.
one last thing. A couple of people wanted you to address. Maybe you can join me on another show, hopefully soon, or maybe I guess tomorrow if we can do this. But they want you to speak about who Mr. Davis is, like who you really are, what gave you that passion to fight for children, and know more about Mr. Davis. Is that
Okay.
possible? Is that okay with you?
Absolutely. We can do that.
All right, perfect. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. Good day, y'all, and maybe we'll see you tomorrow. Watch out for the advertisements on Facebook and YouTube. And otherwise, have a good 4th of July, a good and safe 4th of July.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Mr. Bye-bye.